Welcome to the Breaking 90 podcast, where we talk about all things sustainable fat loss. We take people on 90-day journeys to creating fat loss forever. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoy the episode.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Breaking 90 podcast. I am here today with my co-host, Kelly Sarlo. You all know me, Alex. We are two of the coaches of Breaking 90 Fitness, and we're back today with another episode. Hey, Kelly, how are you?
I'm so good. How are you, Alex?
Doing great. Thank you. What's going on in your world?
I feel like I'm living my best auntie life lately. I'm just thriving being an aunt, and I've got another little one on the way in the summer. So I'm thrilled.
That's awesome. I saw your sweater and I was going to make a comment on you, Aunt Kelly, because Emerson always calls you Aunt Kelly now, which I think is really cute. He was looking at I was posting the Coffee with the Coaches call one day into one of our Facebook groups, and he saw a screenshot of it and he was like, "Hey, that's Aunt Kelly."
Oh, my heart.
It was pretty cute.
Yeah, I love that. So what happened was one of my really good friends, we've been childhood friends, all through this time. She, when she got pregnant, I said to her, as soon as your kid is able to go into soccer, I want to pay for their first year of registration. And
Cool.
I forgot I made this, this pact with her or whatever. And of course he turned 4 and this summer, and it's time. So they reached out and said, do you still want to put him into soccer? I said, absolutely, I do. So I also have a birthday coming up this month. And my mom said, what are you looking for your birthday? I said, obviously, I want the Cadillac of folding chairs because I'm going to spend my whole summer watching soccer games, the little Timbits, run all over the field. And I need a little cooler for orange slices. So these are my aunt goals right now.
That's awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
It's pretty fun. We put Emerson in soccer for the first time last year, and it was pretty cool to see. That's a fun kid sport.
Yeah, it's so great. It was one of the first places that I learned what a team really is. So I'm so excited to give that to him.
Awesome. Love it. What do you have today for a topic for us?
I thought a lot about this. I really want to talk about accountability. This is something, it was one of the reasons that I was brought on to the Breaking 90 team to help coach those in the program. Accountability is something, it's pretty much the number one reason why people seek out coaches, right? We've had this conversation a lot. People generally know what they need to do for their nutrition. They generally know what they need to do for better movement. They might not know specifically what works best for them. That's a trial and error, and that's where great expertise comes in. But accountability is really where things start to break down. And people understand, wow, maybe I can't do this on my own. And then we also go about seeking accountability in some really unhealthy or unproductive ways, unknowingly, right? So it's not about pointing fingers or placing blame. It's just about asking questions and saying, how are you approaching accountability? And what does healthy accountability versus unhealthy look like? So that's what I want to dig into today.
Love it. Great topic. I think honestly, accountability, there's so many things, but I think accountability is definitely one of the top reasons why people do or don't succeed on their journey.
Yeah.
I don't want to say it's the number one reason because I without actually sitting down and thinking about that, I can't guarantee that. But I think it is one of the biggest reasons why people do or don't succeed. So I think that's a great topic. I've got a couple pointers too. I'm going to take a couple notes as we go to make sure I hit the topics that I want to cover. But where do you want to start this conversation?
With who you're choosing. So the first thing I want to talk about is, asking people who in your life have you reached out to ask to hold you accountable. And if you haven't, would you please start considering it? And that doesn't have to be about health and fitness. People might be, taking this podcast in and just really thinking about different areas of their life, who's holding them accountable for work, who's holding them accountable to their own personal interests and their me time. So you can take this in any direction that's really important to you. But if we're talking specifically about health and fitness, most of us reach to the person who is closest to us. And this is something that I really want to challenge people to think about. Because if we're reaching out to a spouse or a partner, however you're referring to your significant other, if we're reaching out to family members, a parent, or our adult children, or to very close friends, this runs us into a lot of trouble, right? Because we have such personal relationships with them. There's so much complexity to the dynamic of our relationship that asking them to wear one more hat or play one more role in our life can really affect how we relate to them in other areas.
I think you also need to be very real with yourself in how you will receive accountability from that person, because what we want to hear and what we have to hear and what we're going to hear are often three different things.
Yeah.
And like, if you're picking somebody to hold you accountable, they need to tell you when you are not doing your job, when you're falling off plan, and they're going to say things you don't want to hear, and they're going to tell you things you don't like. And can you receive that from that person that you're asking to take on that role?
Exactly. And I think for a lot of people, when motivation is really high, when you get started on, okay, I'm changing my health and fitness regime, will you hold me accountable? I'm really excited about this goal. We are more open to that feedback because we are already intrinsically motivated. So we hear it, we're on board with the message. It's why we asked for the accountability in the first place. Things feel like they're in alignment, and today we're good with it. When accountability starts to wane and we're thinking like, oh, I've been really good with myself for, the last 3 weeks, and I haven't really allowed myself to, maybe have some more flexibility or better balance potentially, which is a whole other topic we can dig into. Now the feedback doesn't feel so great. Our intrinsic motivation is a little bit lower, and we're perceiving the feedback in a very different way. So I want people to be aware of that.
A really good way to like have this, and I always tell people, don't choose your spouse for accountability. Like, just don't. Even if you go through these questions, you're like, yeah, my spouse could do that. Don't choose somebody else. You're putting strain on your house that you don't need to put. So a really good way to reflect and look at this is whatever profession you're in, whatever you do for a career, think about the dynamic of having your partner as one of your clients, or if you're a teacher, one of your students, or if you think just about that and how that would change that relationship and dynamic and how difficult that could be. It's the same thing. I'm not saying that you need to choose a coach to hold you accountable. Obviously, I think having a coach is like one of the best things you can do for accountability, but not everybody needs that level of accountability, and not everybody needs that level of accountability at all times. So there are different forms of accountability and where you can seek that. But it's a lot to consider. And I think it's honestly unfair to ask it of your spouse too.
Yeah. And for a number of reasons, I think that's a really good point. One of the things I wanted to touch on too, especially around, when motivation is high and then when it starts to kind of drift a little bit, is that we're so much better at making excuses and really like conversing and justifying with that other person why our excuse is actually okay. I would have a way easier time in my brain and in the pit of my stomach where I get anxiety. We'll get back to that in a second. I can look at my partner and be like, you know what? Yeah, we should get pizza tonight. I think this is something like we've been good all week, and this is something that we could do and it will be fine. I'm not going to get on the phone or, over Messenger with my coach and be like, hey, just wanted you to know, I think it's really okay for me to have pizza tonight because X, Y, and Z, right? Like, I'm not going to have those conversations. It's not even going to cross my mind. So the way that we justify things, it's a slippery slope, and they're on board with it because it means pizza for them too, right?
Yep. And even if they're like, ooh, Kelly, you shouldn't have the pizza, but I know that if I tell you no, you might be a little pissed off at me. So let's have the pizza.
Yeah, like you said, I don't want that stress in my house. Cool.
No, that's a really good point.
Thank you. So the next one I wanted to move to is that ultimately, we all have different definitions of what health and fitness are, right? So when I decide what changes I want to make, when I decide what health and fitness looks like to me, whether that's what my diet looks like or dietary lifestyle, what image I'm going for or physique I'm trying to achieve, when I express the fact that I want to make changes in my life, well, that person that's holding me accountable already has their own definition, right? And so when I go to engage in certain behaviors, whether that's nutrition or movement, they might be looking at me, holding me accountable to what they think is a healthy way of eating or a healthy kind of movement or amount. And so we can be on very different pages, not understanding when, why, or how the other person is trying to do their job, coming from potentially a really great place, but missing the mark completely based on what we think what we want for ourselves.
It's a good point. I think regardless of what you decide for accountability, there needs to be clear guidelines and rules to follow in order for it to work. That's a really good point that you brought up. Like within our coaching program, for instance, we have lots of different forms of accountability. But the one that always comes to mind, and a lot of people talk about, is our calendar system, where you have to put a certain amount of positive days on your calendar and a certain amount of off days on your calendar. And that's just one layer of accountability, but everybody knows the rules, knows how it works, and knows what's expected. So there's not really a gray area there, because this is how it works and this is why we do it. And we all made those rules clear in the first place.
Well, and you're talking about having a plan too. So let's layer that in, right? If I go in, just on a whim because I saw a picture of something that I want, or I decided I have an event that I want to get fit for, and I have an idea today of what's going to get me there, and in 2 weeks from now, I don't see the results that I want or that I think I should be getting back quickly, all of a sudden I change my plan. Well, who are you communicating that to? Like, how are you evaluating whether or not that's good for you? And how does that change the way they're holding you accountable, right? And that gets into a lot of complexities of inconsistency, which is one of our core principles. Like, we need to be looking at consistency more than anything. And random accountability from people who do not have that expertise don't necessarily know how to provide that for you, or give you healthy feedback when you are jumping off the consistency bandwagon.
Yeah, one of the biggest factors to long-term success is consistency, obviously, and what you just said there is something that everybody has struggled with without a clear plan, without clear accountability. It brings me back to like my high school days when my buddies and I first started lifting weights, and there was the idea that you had to either cut to lose fat or bulk to gain muscle. Right. And it would be like, 1 week of cutting, I hate being hungry, let's just bulk instead. And we do that, and then we'd be like, oh, you know what, like I want to get lean because it's almost summertime. So then we're cutting again and bulking again and cutting again. We didn't have clear accountability, we didn't have a clear plan, and we didn't stick to it consistently. That is very, very easy to do if you are your accountability system. If you are the only one in your head and you don't have anything else around you to protect you, because it's even for myself being a coach, I love having a coach to watch over these things, because it's really easy to reward yourself when you're doing well and to punish yourself when you don't believe you're doing well, even if that's not necessarily the case.
Well, and you're touching on another piece, which is education, right? So now I'm making decisions based on a lack of education of what I truly need. I'm just going off of a number that I'm seeing or a feeling that I'm having in my body that changes every single day for good, healthy reasons. We need to be educated about that.
For sure. And that bathroom scale is a mother effer. Like it will, like you're going to step on that thing and it's going to tell you a whole bunch of lies. And if you feed into those, if you believe those lies, you're going to be left starving yourself one day and crushing pizza the next day, just because of what that bathroom scale number told you in the morning when you woke up and stepped on it.
Yeah, exactly. And people with expertise, coaches with expertise, are going to help you read between the lines, right? And that's what we want to get at, is that the accountability person that you're choosing in a family member, a spouse, or a friend, they don't necessarily have that, and it's not their responsibility to. The other thing that I wanted to dive into, though, is also, we talked about it briefly, but the dynamics of a relationship, right? So not just about early on when you set up the new role of accountability, but day to day, depending on what's happening between the two of us in our personal relationship, is going to very much affect the way you perceive their intention, the way that they're trying to communicate things, and the content of what they're communicating too, right? So we don't think that we're putting these filters in. We think we're hearing things properly. We think we're right. But those filters really are in place and affecting how we hear it and how we digest the information.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's definitely the case. And I think it circles back really to having clear guidelines and roles in your accountability, right? Like if somebody doesn't have to wear multiple hats for you, it's easier for them to play that role, to be that accountability for you. But if you're asking somebody close to you to also be your accountability, then they have to switch their filters, they have to switch their hats, they have to switch their roles, and that's where it can there's just too much gray area for it to be successful.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I have a couple notes of things I want to dig into, but you go ahead.
Cool. Yeah, and there's still some things I'd like to get to as well. So we'll keep sharing. I think
Okay.
I just wanted to follow up that last point with this affects the way that you let them hold you accountable, right? So it's not always, or it's not only just about how we're hearing the information and the accountability that they might be offering us. We may be more resistant to letting them hold us accountable if we just had an argument about who's supposed to be cleaning the kitchen after dinner, right? And so we lose track of the intention when they're trying to hold us accountable, and we might fire back with something that's really unhealthy because of what our filter is telling us they're communicating. And that's just something I want people to consider as well. You know, our ego will want to say, no, I don't. But in reality, we're human. We all do it. No matter how much emotional intelligence you have, it's there.
Yeah, agreed. Okay. So two things that I want to touch on here, and feel free to expand or ask questions or anything here. So we touched on this briefly with the idea that when you first get started, your motivation is high. So your level of necessary accountability will change through seasons, through levels of motivation. So that's important to realize. Do I think that everybody can benefit from a coach? 100%. Do I think everybody needs a coach at all times? Probably not. But I don't think it's going to hurt you, but I don't think you always, every season, every day need a coach. But you're going to have seasons of high motivation, like probably January 1st, probably September 1st, probably whenever it is you're deciding to jump on this journey. So the accountability factor can be less there and you'll still be fine. You need that accountability established and in place for when that motivation dips, which you don't know specifically when it's going to happen. Motivation comes and goes in waves, and different life events change that level of motivation. You need to make sure that accountability is there and present and set up and established for when that happens. So it's better to set up your accountability when motivation's high so that you don't have to be solving all of that when you're not feeling motivated.
Yeah, because at that point, a good coach's voice will be in your head. You know, they don't have to be in your DMs. They don't have to be daily or weekly phone calls. It can just simply be that voice is there guiding you.
Yeah. Okay, so that then brings me to my second point is that when people typically start on a journey with us, it's our 90-day journey. And in that 90-day journey, my goal is for everybody to learn everything they need to know to lose fat forever, to make this a sustainable journey. So after 90 days, I want it to be an educational experience. I want you to ask questions and feel like after 90 days, you know everything that you would need to continue making it sustainable. That being said, that doesn't mean you'll have accountability forever. And that's why some people choose to stay on with us for many years, because they know that they benefit from accountability. Other people, though, don't, and they still go on to crush it. But the two challenging questions I give you at the end of a journey, specifically a journey like ours, so you're coming out of your 90 days, and you're like, you know what, I've crushed this 90 days. I'm going to go do this on myself and I'm going to smash it. So the two honest questions you need to answer yourself is, do I have a plan going forward? And what is my accountability going to look like now that I won't have Breaking 90, now that I won't have Weight Watchers or Noom or whatever it is you're leaving? It doesn't matter what that is. what is that accountability going to look like? Because I'm feeling motivated right now because I've had a really successful period of time. So that I know that accountability isn't as important right now today, but what is going to replace that accountability and what is going to replace that plan? If you can answer those two questions honestly and you have a good setup, you'll probably go on to crush it. I talk to previous clients all the time that are 1 year, 2 year, graduated from our program, and they're like, yeah, I'm down another 10, 15, 20, 30 pounds. That's awesome. That's what I want everybody to do coming out of this. But you need to ask yourself these hard questions, because coming out of a program or with high motivation and no plan is like retiring and not knowing what you're going to do in the day of retirement. You're going to hate it. You need to have a plan.
Yeah, I love that. That's good.
That's what I wanted to cover. Is there anything else you want to ask or add?
Yeah, but you know what? I really liked the progression of how this went, because we talked about, in the beginning when you want to seek it, and you're open to it, then talking about how it becomes difficult in that kind of middle ground where you need more accountability and what might block you from it. And you've ended on a really lovely note about talking about when you now know what you need to know, make a plan for accountability so that you can leave a coach, leave a program, and really feel empowered to do things on your own. I like that this is the way that it took. We can dig into triggers, we could dig into the emotions that we feel and why we resist accountability, but I think you've set them up for a really great takeaway, of good next steps, 3 actionable things to think about. So I think I'd rather leave it there.
Cool. And I mean, there's nothing stopping us from digging further on another episode too.
Yeah. If people love this topic or want to send in questions, and are frustrated about their own accountability systems, we can dig into those things, and offer some more advice.
Yep, for sure. Awesome. Well, I like the topic. Thank you for bringing it up. So I, as you guys know, we like to leave you with a little golden nugget at the end of each episode, something to think about, something to work on. So I'm going to give you a kitchen tip today. It's something that I did the other day that we often overcomplicate the idea of what a meal or what lunch needs to be. And so the other day I made a bunch of hamburger patties and I put them in the fridge, and all I do is pull 2 out, heat them up, throw them on a bed of lettuce, and put mustard on it.
Yeah.
And that took me you probably saw my Instagram post the other day.
Yeah.
It took me 30 seconds to make this lunch. I'm making sure I'm getting my protein. I can add any vegetables to that I want to, because it's essentially a salad. And the mustard is like a 0-calorie option to season that with, and it tastes good. And I feel content after that. That is how simple you need to be thinking about your quick meals and lunches, because if we don't have those quick turn to options, that's when it's like, I don't have anything ready. I'm just going to go grab something from a fast food chain or a Subway, or you turn to those quick options that aren't as in line with your goals, but it doesn't always need to be complex to work.
Love it. That's great.
Okay, guys, thank you for listening. Thank you for being here with us. Like Kelly mentioned, if you have questions, if you have things you want to hear more about, make sure you send us a message or comment below. As always, if you share this episode, share it on your Instagram, screenshot it, send it to a friend. We appreciate it, getting the word out there and getting more people listening. So thank you for being here. Have a great day.